don't think any relationship that avoids risk and discomfort is a very deep one. It's about the willingness to be vulnerable again. And it's not soft. We're not going to apologize for it. The things that people mistakenly accuse of being soft are often just the most painful. It's messy. It's about vulnerability. It's about relationship. It's about the willingness to do hard things. There's nothing soft or touchy-feely about that. It's just human. Welcome to At the Table, the podcast that lives at the intersection between leadership, teamwork, organizational health, and culture. I'm your host, Pat Lencioni. This is Cody Thompson, my co-host. You know him. How you doing, Cody?
I'm doing great, Pat. Yeah, love podcast days. They're fun.
They really are, aren't they? We really do enjoy this. It's good.
Yeah.
And we love hearing from listeners. And when we go out, I give talks and people come up and will mention a specific episode or say they listen to it. And I'm always amazed. That's great. What's our topic today, Cody?
The fruits of recommitment.
Yeah, that's people are like, what the hell does that mean? Heck does that mean, you know? This is one, and I don't have a prepared intro. It's just something that we've gone through in our company this year and many times in the past. And I think every organization, every relationship goes through it. I've never heard of people talk about it, and we want to get into this today. And that is that, so you have a good relationship or a good culture in your company. You inevitably come to an impasse, a moment when it's going to unravel or you're going to recommit to it. And it's usually painful and it's messy and it's so tempting to say, maybe it's not worth it this time, or maybe this is the end of the road because we've been through this before. And if we're here again, gosh, what's wrong with us? And the truth is every marriage, every kind of strong relationship gets to that point. And when you go through it and you recommit, it gets better than it's ever been before. And anybody that's been married, I've been married 33 years. You talk to somebody that's been married 50 years and they will say, oh yeah, it's hard. And every time you push through one of those hard moments, you get to a different level of trust and appreciation and love. And so this happens in our organizations too. And we've just been through one. 28 years in, 27 and a half years in, we were like, is this the end? And we're like, no, let's recommit and push each other and take a risk interpersonally. And you come out the other side and you think, I never knew that it could even be this much sweeter.
I think that it's rare, Pat, you just said 28 years. And in 28 years, 28 and 27 of those years, you've worked with Tracy and Karen.
Yes.
And 11 of those years with me. And so just to set the context, it's like, I don't know how many people are at jobs for that long and then with the same colleagues for that long. And so I love you kind of teeing this up to say, like, you would think anybody on the outside looking in would be like, well, they've gone through everything already, right? Like you're 28 years in, there's not a lot of, corners that you haven't, dark places, light places, success and failure, so it's probably just smooth sailing after 28 years. And the truth is I like what you said is like, it's not really it's kind of like a plateau that you push through. And there's always goodness on the other side. And we tend to think like, when you get to that plateau that looks like a cliff, you're like, well, is it over then? Because if after 28 years, we still have to do this, is it still worth it?
And it always looks like a cliff. And it looked like, I'm sure when we were working together at the very beginning, 3 years into it, it looked like a cliff. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had something happen 9 months into starting the company where a client who had committed to us was going to be one of the ways we could make money and get on our feet, just reneged on a contract and basically said, you'll have to sue us if you want to get money from us. And we were like, oh, is it going to end right here? And we're like, nope. We're not going to sue them. We're going to work harder. We're going to pray harder. We're going to just do our best. And every time you work through one of those things, you get at the other end and you go, oh, this is even better now as a result of that.
Yeah.
And I will say, even in marriage, Laura and I have been married 33 years. There have been moments when it was really hard. And we are so glad that when we got to those moments, we were like, oh, let's work through this. And on the other side, I love her more now after 33 years. I love Karen and Tracy, not in the same way I love my wife, and you more as a result of the things we've gone through than if we'd never done it. And I think people think, well, let's just hope it's smooth sailing and it's not risky or uncomfortable. I don't think any relationship that avoids risk and discomfort is a very deep one.
I would even be even more prescriptive and proactive and say, part of this podcast came as a result of an offsite that we just had. And we got to a
Yes.
point in the offsite
Oh my gosh.
where you could have chosen one of two paths. And one path was what felt dangerous and to move into the danger. And the other path, you could have very easily said, okay, well, let's just like call it and we'll go back to our, respective areas of work and we'll work through this. And it would have plateaued our level of, it's not that we don't like it, there was another level of trust that we could have gotten to. It's actually when you get to that moment, you have to choose the hard thing, because a lot of people get to that impasse and they say, yeah, that part's hard. This feels a lot easier. Let me go on the easy route. And it's choosing the hard thing that leads to more vulnerability.
One of my favorite books, and I read it before we started the table group, but it had a huge impact on me, was Built to Last. And I got to meet Jerry Porras, one of the authors. And then later I got to know Jim Collins. I love that book. And it's like, how do organizations last? And, they were looking at the things like about core values and all, and which I love. I love their stuff. I really do. And, but one of the things is you have to be willing to say, yes, even after this many years, we still have issues we have to work through. And I hear about people that get divorced after 28 years of marriage or something like that. And I'm sure that they get to this point, and gosh, I've been there, where you go, if we're still working on this after 28 years, what's wrong with us? And the answer is nothing, nothing. And it's just what is there. This is the will of God that you walk through this together. And like, we had that meeting not very long ago, Cody. And I was like, wow, we've worked together for 27 and almost 28 years. And I was like, am I just going to be too tired to do it this time? And we had the best, deepest conversation we've ever had. And I don't like to air this because I just want to tell, it's not a reality TV show. I just want to let people know, if your organization feels messy and imperfect, do not judge yourself. The very best companies, the very best families, the very best departments, the very, very best churches and schools, the people that work there have messy relationships and they love each other through them. And that's how they get to the other side. And when you read about them on Wikipedia, which I hope you don't, because that's crap half the time. But when you read about the story, they tell it like it was smooth sailing the whole time. Mm-hmm. But the very best teams work through hard things, and that's how they get stronger. And that's how they experience the real fruit of it all. And like I said, when you talk to somebody that's been married for years and years and years, they're like, oh yeah, it's awesome. And people will say like, yeah, we've been married for 50 years. It's the best 45 years of my life. And it probably breaks down that way, and it's totally worth it.
I think it's interesting because when we say the word recommitment, I think a lot of people might think that means, well, let's recommit to our strategy. Let's recommit to, some strategic initiative and a lot of times I think when you say that word, or when we title this podcast, it's like recommitting to trust and to each other. It's not necessarily like a business plan. It's like to the people and to the trust building process. I remember we hired a new employee, this was a handful of years ago, and he came, I think the first week that we had him employed, we had a table group offsite. So it was like all of our company together, and whatever the perspective is outside of the table group, he had a friend reach out to him. And I remember him saying this to me. He's like, a friend reached out and said, man, what's an offsite like with the table group? Like, is it the most high level strategic, planning session you've ever had? And he said back, and I'll remember this because it's very true. He said, no, it's like the most vulnerable small group you've ever been to. And I think that oftentimes that gets lost, is like the recommitment. That offsite we had was more about building trust than it was about any business strategy.
Yep.
And I was just on a podcast with Bobby Herrera, the org health podcast that a couple of our PCs do. And he said some phrase, and I'll butcher it a little bit, but he said, we just constantly focus on trust, because the more trust you have in the organization, everything gets easier. Things cost less, things move faster. And I'd never really thought of it in that, like, the cost less and move faster range. We always go, but the truth is all we do regularly when we recommit is recommit to higher levels of trust and vulnerability with each other.
I just wrote down the word vulnerability in my notes here, because I thought that's the thing that we're recommitting to, is yes, I will do it again. Because what's really hard, and this happens in any relationship, is you're vulnerable and you have a good relationship. Something happens and it gets lost a little bit, and you start to question things. You climb up that ladder of inference, and you have to recommit to vulnerability. And it's like, am I going to do this again? And the answer is yes. I don't like apologizing to my wife any more today than I did 6 months after we got married. This morning on the way, she gave me a ride to work, and I said something and she didn't like it. It had to do with her phone. And she goes, I feel like you're not respecting my things. I go, no, I'm just going to fix this. She goes, I don't want you to fix it. And I was like, I had to go like, I didn't mean to disrespect you. Mm-hmm. And she goes, thanks. And it sucks just as much today as it did 30 years ago. And I have to recommit to that. And here's what I want to say. It all comes down to moments of truth. Like in that day when we were working on our offsite, there was this moment of truth. And thank you, God, for giving me the desire to do this. When you just think, am I going to do this again? And it's a moment. It's this. And because I don't want to make this sound like some big general thing. There's this moment of truth where you're sitting there and you're going to go, I don't think it's worth it this time. And you got to go, I care too much about this and about these people not to do that. Now, sometimes you'll do it on a team, and somebody else on the team might decide that they're not up for it anymore. And that's the time when it's like, there are times, Henry Cloud wrote a book called Necessary Endings, where somebody has to say, this isn't for me anymore. But when you're the leader and you decide it's not worth it, that's when it all comes to an end. That's when you put a ceiling on everything and you say, we will never go beyond this. And our company today, after 28 years and 7 days, is more meaningful, more caring about one another, and more strategic than we've ever been. And that is only because we keep coming to these moments. And they don't happen every week, but they might happen every 18 months or every 3 years, where you go, oh my gosh, this could come to an end right now if we don't go back out there and enter the danger, because it feels very dangerous. So yeah, it's about the willingness to be vulnerable again.
Yeah. Pat, and I think about every time we get in front of a client, or our consultants are pitching work to potential clients and saying like, hey, here's what org health is. And we go to discipline number 1, which is build a cohesive leadership team. And we start with trust. And you say this on stage every time. It's like, did I really pay this guy to come tell me that we have to trust each other? But I think what's so interesting is like, if you don't get that right, everything else doesn't work, and you might be able to sustain a strategy here and there. But when we talk about organizational health, that is the starting point. It's the foundation of all of it. And if you can't get trust on the leadership team, then you're host.
And it's not soft. We're not going to apologize for it. But I still am constantly anticipating objections when I work with leadership teams. After 30 years of doing this, I still say to the leadership teams when I work with them, okay, this next thing we're going to do, it's the first thing we're going to do, is not touchy-feely, I promise. It's going to seem like it. And then we do it, and they're like, oh, that was great. But I'm still tempted to skip that sometimes with executive teams, because I'm like, I don't want them to think this is soft. And so, darn it, the things that people mistakenly accuse of being soft are often just the most painful.
And I would even say this, Pat, like, I think it would surprise people to know, I think about like the last major client engagement that you and I went to. Big company, we're like doing all this stuff with them. They have a big strategy board. And I think it's so interesting. We get in the car and go to the airport. And the conversation that happens on the way to the airport is, we don't sit there and say, I don't think it'll work because their strategy's off. It's like, we literally said, I don't think it's going to work because those two people don't trust that person and he's not vulnerable enough. And it's crazy to think that is our assessment of a 5-hour, strategic meeting with an executive team at a big company. But that's the truth, and it's not going to work because of that.
And you could go to every member of that team, and this, I don't just mean that team, but any team we've worked with, and say, and if they would go, you're totally right. Because it's apparent. You're sitting there and you're going, if those people don't learn to trust each other, this is all over. I mean, Cody, one of the things you and I talked about, and because we've reworked our company a number of times recently, trying to figure out the right way to do it, because we've moved and people are moving their functions and their geography. And you and I said, Cody, if you and I aren't on the same page and we don't sharpen each other, this won't work. And if somebody came to our company and said, let me look at your products, let me look at your strategy, let me look at your marketing, your messaging. And then they said, oh, you and Cody aren't actually having honest conversations. Oh, that's okay. Your marketing is really strong.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
This is the essence of smart and healthy, right?
Absolutely.
It's messy. It's about vulnerability. It's about relationship. It's about the willingness to do hard things. There's nothing soft or touchy-feely about that. It's just human.
I was just thinking about our offsite and like, what's the handle for this is the next time you feel like you get to that cliff, have the courage and know that on the other side, like you have to go there. And I know people are probably like, well, what was the cliff? And what did you, and it was like, you literally, I don't want to make it too practical because I don't want to be overly prescriptive, but it was like, is there 10% of something that you're not saying? Is there, like, say the last 10%, like go beyond, the dynamics of the room. And you teed up a question for us all to answer about each other that really went through that plateau into the next level.
And I'd never done that before here or with other clients, because we've done the personal histories exercise. We've done the team effectiveness exercise. But I got to the point in that meeting, I'll share this, where I said to us, I said, I think if there's anything we've not told each other in the past that we've held back, I think this is the time where we have to say it. And nobody was like, yay. We were like, so we're really going to go there.
And then we all wrote it down, and then you made me go first. And I was like, okay, I don't know what level of depth we're doing here, but I'm going to go all the way there. And
I made you go first to me.
Yes, to you.
I said, I have to go first as the leader. Cody, what's something you have? Yeah, I probably figured you would be willing to do that to set the stage.
Yeah.
And we said hard things to each other. And yet, right on the other side of hearing those hard things was relief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's out there. The only thing worse than hearing something hard is wondering if people are thinking it and they just haven't told you.
Yeah.
And everybody told each other hard things, and it brought about a greater movement in unity, teamwork, clarity, strategy, everything, because we did that. And I remember that moment going, I can't believe we're going to do this, and it's hard being the cobbler's children. I mean, like we're like, yeah, we tell other teams to do this, but we went deeper than we've ever asked a client to. And that will add to what we do with other clients as well. But we had to eat that, as we say, eat that dog food first, which doesn't really make any sense anymore because they make dog food now that's like,
human
feed
grade.
Your dog like a person.
Yeah.
And Laura and I were like, sometimes we feed our kids like they're dogs. But in any case, go there, recommit, embrace the messiness, embrace the vulnerability. The fruit on the other side tastes better than the fruit from 28 years ago and from the whole process. So, all righty.
Love it.
I think that's enough. All righty. Hey, everybody, we hope this is helpful. Go ahead and punch the like button or share this or do whatever you do. Send up a smoke signal telling all your friends that you like this podcast, if you will. We love having you on it. We love doing this, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time on At the Table. God bless.